Welcome to episode 102 in our series on Duties of the Heart by Rabbi Bachya Ibn Pakuda, and we're still in the gate of love of God, and we're up to chapter 5, and I think in this episode we're going to do chapter 5 and chapter 6. So we're continuing with Rabbi Bahya's initial questions that he quoted at the beginning of this, that he asked at the beginning of this gate. And this question of number 5 is, what are the things that prevent or preclude love of God? So he begins. The things that preclude love of God are exceedingly numerous. One of these is deficiency in the preliminaries from which love of the Creator springs. Further factors detrimental to love of God are the things detrimental to these preliminaries. I have discussed them earlier in this book and shall not repeat them here, so that the discourse not be too lengthy. Further, our hatred of those he loves and those he hates, as it says, should you help the wicked and love those who hate God? That's from Divrei Ha'arim. And who exonerate the wicked? That's from Yeshayahu. And also, to justify the wicked and condemn the righteous. That's from Proverbs 17:15. And also, from Proverbs, those who forsake the Torah praise the wicked. And one more quote, one who says to the wicked, you are virtuous. That's also from Proverbs. And that ends the 5th chapter. So we must not hate those who God loves, and we must not love those who God hates. It's a very simple message. Chapter 6. What are the signs of love of God to be found in one who loves him? Amongst them is renunciation of all excesses that might keep him from serving the Creator. May he be exalted. A further sign is that traces of his fear of God and profound dread of him are apparent in his facial expression, as it is written in Shemos, so that his fear be on your faces and you not sin. So sometimes when you see a very pious person, he is privy to a great realization or great revelation, and he is almost shocked by the state of reality that he is in. He is close to God, and he sees manifested signs of God, and it's apparent in his face. That's his kind of realization. Rabbi Bahya continues, fear of God is of two kinds. One of these is fear of his punishments and trials. One fears God in this case because he can cause him pain and suffering. If, however, he were immune to suffering, he would not fear God. Of such individuals our masters of blessed memory said, and he quotes from Megillah 25b, we should be wary lest they come to observe the commandments out of fear. Such an individual falls short of the degree attained by the truly God-fearing and is the embodiment of what our masters of blessed memory warned against in Ethics of Our Fathers, chapter 1, verse 3, Mishnah 3, be not like servants who serve the master on condition of receiving a reward. One of the pious said, I would be ashamed before God to serve him because of reward and punishment. I would then be like a bad servant who, if he fears punishment or expects reward, will perform, but who otherwise will not perform. I will rather, however, serve him because he is worthy of this. That's very, very true. If you're going to be a servant of God, you mustn't be just a job's worth or someone who is in it for the money, for the potential rewards, because you'll never commit yourself fully, you'll never reach your potential. You have to do it because you love it. There's no such element of reward or punishment that comes into it. You're doing it because you love the Creator, and you want to serve him wholeheartedly. The second kind of fear of God is awe, inspired by his magnitude, exaltedness, and awesome power. This awe never leaves a person or parts from him all the days of his life. This is the highest of the degrees of the God-fearing to whom the scriptures attribute awe, yirah. It is the gateway to pure love and intense yearning. So Rabbi Bahya is reminding us, perhaps, again study God's handiwork, to give yourself a visual display. Seeing is believing, and when you are involved in science, in looking for the handiwork of God, you'll see it very, very clearly, and you'll see it in profound, beautiful, and diverse ways. And in this, you will be awestruck, and it'll give you a very, very simple way of learning about God and learning how to be in awe of God. And Rabbi Bahya continues, one who reaches this degree of fear of God will not fear or be afraid of anything but the Creator, as one of the pious told of a God-fearing man who he had found asleep in the desert. He asked the man, "Are you not afraid of lions? How can you sleep in such a place?" The man replied, "I would be ashamed before God if he were to see that I was afraid of anything besides him." A further sign that a person loves God is that it is all the same to him whether people praise him or condemn him, when, in fulfillment of the will of the Creator, may he be exalted, he enjoins them to do what is good and to keep far from evil. A further sign is that he is willing to surrender his life, his body, his money, and his children in order to do the will of God. May he be exalted. As it says in Psalms, "Because of you we are slain all day long." Another sign is that he repeatedly mentions God's name in appreciation, thanksgiving, and songs of praise. As it says, "My tongue will intone your righteousness, your praises all day long." That's from Psalms 35. Also from Psalms 71, "My mouth will be filled with your praises all day long with your glory." But he does not mention the name of the Creator in trivial oaths, false oaths, or curses. Trivial oaths are those that a person utters pointlessly, needlessly, without compulsion, without being required to take an oath by law. False oaths are those uttered falsely when one is required to take an oath by law in his dealings with other people. Out of reverence for his name, he must beware of all that might bring him to swear in the name of the Creator. May he be exalted, whether to affirm what is true or refute what is false, and certainly not to affirm what is false or refute what is true, as it is written in Psalms 24, he who has clean hearts and a pure hand, who has not sworn falsely by my name or sworn deceitfully. Out of reverence for his name, he must beware of all that might bring him to swear in the name of the Creator, may he be exalted, whether to affirm what is true or refute what is false, and certainly not to affirm what is false or refute what is true, as it is written in Psalms 24, he who has clean hands and a pure heart, he who has not sworn falsely by my name or sworn deceitfully. And also from Deuteronomy chapter 28, to fear this glorious and awesome name. And also from Malachi chapter 3 verse 20, but the sunrise will bring salvation to you who fear my name, with healing in its wings. Our sages of blessed memory said of the last verse, "You who fear my name," refers to people who fear to utter the name of God in vain. This is from the Dorim 8b. Curses include revilement, vilification, and insults in which God's name is mentioned. This is extremely disgraceful in a believer, yet the masses permit themselves this practice to a most reprehensible degree. Their intention in mentioning God's name is to dramatize and exaggerate in their vilification and to heighten and embellish their insults. In this, they embody what the wise one said, "To a fool it is like sport to commit an indecency." It's from Proverbs chapter 10. It is also said in Yeshayahu chapter 9, "Every mouth speaks impiety." And also back to Proverbs, he quotes from chapter 10, "The tongue of a righteous man is like pure silver." A further sign that a person loves God is that when promising others that he will do or say something, even in the very near future, he always adds the proviso, God willing, for two reasons. Number one, because he fears death may swiftly overtake him and prevent him from fulfilling what he promised. Number two, because he does not know whether it has been foreordained by God for this to be done. And a further sign is that he guides and directs others to God's service, gently or forcefully as is needed, according to the time and the place, and the different types and levels of people, from kings to ordinary folk. As King Solomon said in Proverbs chapter 1, that a wise man may hear and add to his knowledge, and that a man of understanding acquire perceptiveness. And also from chapter 1 in Proverbs, to lend shrewdness to the simple, to a youth knowledge and discernment. This is very, very true. If one is able to speak to every type of person, and is willing to speak to every type of person in his fulfillment of his duties of a servant, this is a great gift. Perhaps God has given him the gift to be able to communicate with all types of people, so he can spread his message efficiently and in the right manner, depending on the type of person that he is engaging with. And Rabbi Bahya continues, you should know, my brother, that even if a believer were to attain the utmost limit in the improvement of his own soul and its devotion to God, may he be exalted, even if he were to approach the level of the prophets, insofar as their personal virtues, their praiseworthy conduct, their effort in serving God, and their pure love for him are concerned, his merits would not be equal to those of one who guides others to the right path and directs the wicked to the service of the Creator. For the merits of such a person are multiplied every day and at all times by the merits of those whom he has guided. So this is very important. Rabbi Bahya is going to describe now an analogy that brings to focus this idea that how great a person is if he can bring other people back to the right way. And he continues, consider the following analogy. Two merchants came to town. The first merchant sold the single item in his possession at a profit of 10 times the cost price. The total amount he received was 100 zuz. The second merchant sold his merchandise at a profit only equal to the cost price, but he had many items, and so the total he received amounted to 10,000 zuz. The first merchant, despite his high rate of profit, gained only 90 and 10/11ths zuz. The second merchant, despite his low rate of profit, gained 5,000 zuz. So too, my brother, if one rectifies himself alone, his merit will be little, but if one rectifies himself and many others as well, his merit will be multiplied by the merits of every person he has rectified for the service of God. As our masters of blessed memory said, and he quotes from Devarim 33, whoever leads many people to virtue, no sin occurs through him. Moshe was virtuous and led many people to virtue. The people's virtue is attributed to him, as it says, and here is a quote in Devarim, he executed God's justice and his laws with Israel. So too, my brother, if one rectifies himself alone, his merit will be little, but if one rectifies himself and many others as well, his merit will be multiplied by the merits of every person he has rectified for the service of God. As our masters of blessed memory said, whoever leads many people to virtue, no sin occurs through him. Moshe was virtuous and led many people to virtue. The people's virtue is attributed to him, as it says in Deuteronomy chapter 33, he executed God's justice and his laws with Israel. That's on Preclude chapter 5 verse 18. King Solomon said, for those who reprove there will be delight, and a good blessing will come upon them. That's from Proverbs 24:25. As it says, true instruction was in his mouth, and he turned back So too, my brother, if one rectifies himself alone, his merit will be little. But if one rectifies himself and many others as well, his merit will be multiplied by the merits of every person he has rectified for the service of God. As our masters of blessed memory have said, whoever leads many people to virtue, no sin occurs through him. Moshe was virtuous and led many people to virtue. The people's virtue is attributed to him, as it says in Devarim. He executed God's justice and his laws with Israel. That's from Pirkei Avos, Ethics of Our Fathers, chapter 5, Mishnah 18. King Solomon said, also from Proverbs 24, for those who reprove there will be delight, and a good blessing will come upon them. And this also says in Kings chapter 2, verse 6, true instruction was in his mouth, and he turned back many from iniquity. And Daniel chapter 12, and those who turn the many to righteousness shall shine like the stars forever and ever. The Creator has therefore commanded us to reprove those who fall short in the fulfillment of their duties. As it says, you must reprove your fellow. That's from Leviticus chapter 19. Our masters of blessed memory said in Arachin 16b, until what point is the obligation of reproof? Rav said, until one is cursed. Shmuel said, until one is stricken. And it says, he who admonishes a man to serve me will find favor. That's from Proverbs chapter 28. Further signs that a person loves God are his joy and delight in his virtues, because he rejoices in them not out of pride or arrogance, while he mourns and grieves over his sins, repentant and remorseful. As King David said, my eyes shed streams of water because they did not keep your Torah. That's from Psalms 119. A further sign is that he prostrates himself in prayer at night and fasts by day if he can bear it. For night prayer is purer than day prayer for several reasons. At night, a person is freer than he is during the day. The body's desire for food and drink is less at night than by day. Social contact with other people, such as a friend who comes to visit him, an acquaintance who would talk with him, a creditor demanding payment of what is due him, stops at night. A person's senses have a rest at night from many sensations that they perceive by day, as there are fewer distracting sights and disrupting sounds. At night one is saved from affectation in one's devotion and kept far from it, since there are so few people around him, but during the day he may not have the opportunity to be alone. Moreover, it is fitting that he be alone while remembering God, and that he seek privacy with him at the time when every lover is wont to be alone with his beloved, when intimates seek privacy with one another, as it says in Yeshayahu chapter 26, at night I yearn for you with my whole being. And also Shir HaShirim, by night on my bed I sought the one I love. Night prayer is mentioned many times in the Holy Scriptures. For example, King David said, in night I remember your name, God. That's from Psalms 119. And also from Psalms 119, at midnight I rise to praise you. And also from the same section, I rise before dawn and cry out in prayer. My eyes open before the night's watch are gone. And also from Psalms 88, when I cry out at night. And from Eicha, chapter 2, verse 19, arise, cry out at the night, in the night. There are many other similar passages. Now Rabbi Bahya is going to describe this concluding chapters of the book after this gate is finished. He continues, I have composed in Hebrew some elegant words, words of admonition and reproach for the soul, words that will encourage the soul in God's service and inspire it to prayer. I have entitled this composition Tochacha, or admonition. I followed this with a piece written in Hebrew in an elegant style, in praise of and thanksgiving to God. It contains a plea for forgiveness and words of supplication, gentle words that stir the heart of one who prays and that awaken his natural feelings. I have entitled it Vakasha, entreaty. Both have been included at the end of this book for anyone who would like to recite them as his fervent prayer, whether by night or by day. Whoever undertakes this should adopt the following method. He should recite the admonition whilst seated, after first prefacing it with whatever he chooses of the usual psalms or the like. He should then recite the entreaty, standing and then bowing low until its end. He should then kneel and recite whatever supplications he wishes, and follow them with the psalms that opens, How blessed are those of upright way, that's Tehillim 119, and the entire groups of psalms that bear the title, A Song of Ascents. These are 120 to 134 in the psalms. If one chooses to recite other prayers or use any other order, he may do so. I merely suggest to you the most fitting way of going about it. The main thing, my brother, is to have purity of spirit when you recite these prayers, and that you concentrate on them properly. Recite them and what follows them, slowly, and not let your tongue get ahead of your heart. For a little of a prayer with a heart's devotion is better than a lot recited rapidly with the tongue without devotion. A pious one once remarked, do not offer vacuous praise, empty, because the heart is not in it. Rather, let your heart be ever present when you pray. As King David said, with all my heart I seek you. Let me not wander from your commandments. That's from Psalms 119. With all my heart I plead before you. Also Psalms 119. And Psalms 84, my heart and flesh sing for joy to the living God. Further signs that a person loves God are joy and delight in God, may he be exalted, and in knowledge of him, longing for his favour, exaltation and love of him, attachment to his Torah, and regard for those who fear him. As it says, I am a friend to all those who fear you. That's from Psalms 119. May all who seek you rejoice and be glad in you. And in the ways of your precepts I delight. That's also from Psalms 119. I have taken possession of your precepts forever, for they are my heart's delight. Also Psalms 119. And finally, to conclude this chapter, from Habakkuk, yet I will rejoice in Hashem, exult in the God of my salvation. So fascinating instruction there from Rabbi Bahya. And those two chapters are going to come at the end, after the end of the last gate, which I will include in this series. So beautiful words from Rabbi Bahya, giving us full instruction on how to really learn the correct framework of loving God. And I look forward to continuing the series with chapter 7, and in that he's going to describe the ways of those who love God and what they are like.